Luke's first arc showed how selfishness can be warped and manipulated, culminating in the destruction of a city and the death of thousands. The second shows how he changed, how important to have a group of friends to support you in this change, gaining back trust, along with the goal of stopping the one who groomed and manipulated him from destroying all that he holds dear. The final one is a bit more somber. Because you see, even after everything he's done, Luke feels like he's lost his place in the world. He has no direction, not even feeling that it's right to stay in the place he calls home. A month after they've lowered all the lands, Luke is summoned to the drawing room by his parents. Duke Fabra scolds Luke for being inactive for the past month and informs Van's sword is missing. Someone took it from the absorption gate, meaning this could be free or any of the dead god generals could still be alive. His mother noticed his recent forlorn behavior and that he feels like he has no place in his own home. Worried, she recommends for Luke to visit his friends and points him to their butler Ramdas for their locations. Oddly enough, Ramdas mentions that Duke Fabra ordered him to not give him the letters from his friends. Dude scolds him for not being active but orders letters addressed to him not delivered because he's still obsessed with social status. This kind of parenting is the reason Luke became an ass. Maybe a little news from his friends and some encouragement could have helped. Anyway, Luke snatches the letters from Ramdas and leaves, deciding to ask everyone about what recently happened in the absorption gate. He boards a ferry to Sheridan, hoping to borrow the Albior from Aston. On the ship, he reads the letters he received. Tyr is as stiff as ever, the letter reading more like a situation report. Guy tells him that he's become a Malkuth noble who walks Peony's pet rapigs. Anis is Anis. In Sheridan, Aston tells Luke that Ash borrowed the Albior 3 a month ago, confirming that he headed to the radiation gate to help them out. Aston then brings up the planet Storm being more active, stating the danger that it could destroy the Tartarus that's currently suppressing the core's vibration, stabilizing the Earth from turning into poison mud, and keeping the miasma from exploding. Learning that Ash is headed to Yulia City, we set our next destination. Also, the game gives you fast travel. Cool, I guess. Reaching Yulia City, it looks like Theodora was waiting for Luke as well. He greets Luke and informs of the confusion experienced by the people when they learned the world has strayed from the score. Luke asks about Ash and he tells us that Ash asked something about getting into the core. Luke meets with Tyr, who's in front of Van's memorial in her garden. Luke pays respects to the memorial and thanks Tyr for the letter. It was her first time writing one, which explains why it sounds like a military report. Like Luke, Tyr has a lot of thoughts in her mind, still thinking of why her brother sought such extreme methods to bring about change in the world. Luke then shares his worries with Tyr, of him having no place, no family, not even a name. She then reminds him of his own words, that the time he spent with his parents were still real, but the doubts and fear cloud what he knows in his mind. Tyr recommends asking everyone about himself, mentioning that she needed to bring a message to Ion in Dath anyway. Once we're back there, we see Anis racketeering. While waiting for Ion, Luke asks Tyr about Mose, and hey, looks like the guy is getting what he deserves. In jail and in trial. Anis returns and tells us about how people have been asking about the score after the lands fell into the Clifoth. Also, word of the closed score got out. Not looking good for the plan to going away from the score. Since Luke asked Anis for an audience with Ion, she guides them to his room. Luke asks about his worries and what he'll do. Ion is set on his goal on letting people know about the existence of replicas like him and Luke, something he decided on their first adventure together. Tyr then hands her message to Ion. It's a report on the world's current situation, a mass usage of energy causing the planet Storm to become overactive, and how someone took Van's sword in the absorption gate. And hey, Guy's here to warn us that this has escaped. And he freed Mose on his way to incarceration. Great. He also mentions that he met Ash in Grand Kokma and was warned about the God Generals. Ash also mentioning about going to Saint Bina, about freeing Lorelai. Luke brings Guy up to speed, and he also mentions that he heard the same message about Lorelai. So they decide to head for St. Bina to pick up Ash's tracks. Anis asks to join for some reason, which Ian allows since he wants to hear from Ash as well. Reaching St. Bina, the elderly McGovern is surprised to see Luke with short hair. Ash passing himself off as Luke with the excuse of his hair growing fast. Now what kind of idiot would do that? We are then told he went to Sherry Hill. Unfortunately, this part of the game is just a quick barrage of go here and go there. It's not that bad, especially if you're engrossed in the story, which is pretty easy to be in this game. Plus, there is a lot of side stuff in the game, and this part of the game is where you kind of explore most of it. Although there's a lot of timed events that you kind of have to use a guide on. That stuff is kind of easy to miss, especially the timings of the events. At the foot of Shirley Hill, Guy asks Luke if he's afraid of meeting Ash. Then Luke asks him about his father and aunt. In the end, he just accepted that it was just the unfortunate consequence of war, and that at least he was able to learn about the truth of it from the ones involved. That's why he's here helping and why he was with Luke before. They were stopping the war and making sure no more tragedies happen. We enter the passage ring to see a trail of fallen Oracle Knights. In the control panel, Ash is fighting an alive Legretta. Looks like she's determined to fulfill Van's goal. Ash is furious at Luke, who has no clue to what Lorelai's word meant. He doesn't answer what Lorelai said, or what it means, or if Van is still alive along with other god generals. You'd think that's a plot hole, but Ash is just that stubborn. He has the mentality of, if you don't know what you're doing, I'll do it alone. We return to St. Bina with Jade assembling troops. Apparently, Malkuth troops were attacked during training. Unfortunately, we get news of General Frings being heavily injured. We rush to Grand Kokma to where he is, and he was part of the force who was attacked. His wounds are fatal and has a short time left. It's here that he reveals who attacked them, a group of unknown people carrying a Kimlaskan flag. They were using firebombs, and yeah, those. He asks him to take you to our sanctuary, a place of worship and religion. He's afraid of a world without the score, and yet he mentions how free it feels, wanting to live in it longer. He mentions the attacker's dead eyes, pleading with Luke to not allow a war to start. He then passes away, praying to Yulia to bring happiness to the world. There is a herd that's mentioned, but I wasn't able to do his questline with General Cecile. Sorry. At Jade's invitation, we meet with Emperor Peony. Jade reports the situation, and Peony asks Luke to send a message to King Ingobert about the recent events. Luke has been recently doubting himself for being a replica, but Peony, being the great guy he is, just straight up invites him to Malkuth, reminding him of his previous accomplishments and to have confidence. This is an important point, we'll get to it later. Peony also mentions why he's looking for Ash. Witnesses saw him with the key of Lorelai, and if you're perceptive, that was the sword Ash was using when he was fighting against Legretta earlier. They were looking for it as a possible solution to the recently growing activity of the planet storm. Anis then asks Luke what Lorelai said to him about saving him. Find the key and save me. One who would seize glory is trying to trap me. Luke and we, the player, did not know what that meant, but in the ancient Hispanian language that phone mages use, it means Van de Stelka, Van's real name. Luke wasn't taught this language, so he didn't understand what it meant. You'd think Lorelai, who's basically Jesus, would know that. This revelation confirms Van's survival. They're doubting it now, but I'm telling you this now so we don't get confused down the line, okay? Cool? Cool. Peony orders Jade and Guy to join this investigation. Their next destination is Patical, to confirm the actions of the Kimlaskan troops. Anis then excuses herself to send the letter to Ion. At the front of the king's manor in Patical, we come across Natalia, who grabs Jade by his collar, enraged at the reports of the Kimlaskan forces attacking Malkuth. She is not amused by his usual demeanor either, after the people of Quecedonia eyed her and her soldiers while inspecting the event. We bring King Ingobert and Natalia up to speed with everything, and Jade recounts the attackers having dead eyes similar to Fomicry experience. The attackers are replicas. Along with the escaped Moes, the god generals are trying to restart the war. We head for Dath, with Tyr experiencing a dizzy spell and taken to the cathedral. Tyr's condition worsening because of the planet storm becoming stronger, hence the miasma infected 7 phonons in her body, weakening her. Ion mentions that he may have a solution to Tyr's condition, until...
Ion, we have a problem. Anis, just where have you been? That's what I'm saying. We have a serious problem outside.
What's happened?
The miasma's everywhere. It's seriously bad. Ion, please, come quickly.
We then rush outside to see...
What?
Don't move!
Major Lagretta!
What the hell is this?
Arietta storms in, questioning Lagretta about Ion, asking if they really intend for him to read the 7 phone stone score, the final part of the score that's obscured and undiscovered, from which the strain from using the energy to transcribe it would ultimately kill Ion. Arietta tells us that Anis has taken Ion to the Sephiroth entrance, and there we find him with Mose. Mose orders Anis to bar us from following them, threatening her with her parents' lives. She reveals that she's been spying for Mose since the beginning. Unfortunately, the glyph serving as the entrance to Mount Saleho has been disabled, so we need to look for another entrance and use the alveolar to enter the mouth of Mount Saleho. However, before we could exit outside the entrance, replicas of the dead are being used to prevent us from leaving. Among them, replicas of Guy's sister Mary, General Frings, and Iemon. Most using innocents as human shields with faces familiar to us. Not wanting to harm them, Tyr uses her hymns to put them to sleep. The strain of using it on so much people, sending her to her heels. Not wasting any time, we head to the mouth of the volcano mountain. Since we entered the hottest parts of the mountain,
Man, it's hot.
Well, we are inside a volcano. The air seems to burn my throat and lungs with every breath.
Then how come you look so comfortable?
Oh, not at all. I'm so hot I could just die.
You really know how to get on people's nerves.
with Jade quite unbothered.
毎度毎度暑いところに行くと思うが、ジェイドってなんか自分だけ涼しい巫術とか使ってんじゃね？
そうですわね。だんだんそんな気がしてきましたわ。ずるいですの。
嫌ですね。そんな器用なことができるわけないじゃないですか。
いや、何か秘密があるはずだ。まさかその服に秘密が？
マルクト軍が開発した空冷服なのかもしれませんわね。
脱げ。
は？
そうだ、脱げ！
ええ、お脱ぎなさい。脱ぐですの。
皆さん、目が座ってますよ。何を
30代後半の男性軍人を脱がせるなんて正気とは思えないわよ。暑苦しい。
Yeah, I just really wanted to show that skit, which actually puts me in a good spot to discuss one of the best elements of the game. It's humor. This game has a lot of serious themes: mental health, ethical discussions about killing people, war, religion, just to name a few. But one thing this game never forgets is to make you laugh. The humor from the game mostly springs from, well, Jade mostly, but a lot of the humor comes from either his proclivity to make fun of people, with Anis as his comedy sidekick, or even a lot of times Mew just being cute, Tyr's secret love of cute things, Guy being a nerd and making fun of his, weakness, Natalia's inability to cook. They have a lot of hits, and having voice acting with the skits especially makes these skits so much better. Again, it's a goddamn shame that there's no voice acting for the English skits because, well, the English voice cast is really good. So, if this ever gets a remaster, I do hope they record new voice acting for the skits. Now, the importance of levity in stories are a different subject on its own, but I do think that it is important to have these moments. It gives us important breaks from the tension of the story and reminds us that there's a different side to these people we are having a journey with. Carrying on, the volcano is a straightforward set of caves. Everything is weak to water, there are fireballs that arch over and hurt you. There's also that giant lake of lava. Deep in the volcano, a dragon has made this place its home. It's not in a good mood since it's sensing intruders, namely us. With careful maneuvering through its vision, we reach the dragon to, unfortunately, fight it. This thing is a ginormous wall of meat. It has a lot of devastating attacks, with its fireball particularly dangerous. Just keep it away from your casters and don't forget to defend. You'll be fine. After killing the dragon, Luke and Mew expresses guilt for invading its home. Sadly, we need to get through as soon as we can to rescue Ion. We finally reach Ion, but unfortunately, we are too late. He's already reading the score and already sounding weak. Luke rushes in to stop Ion, but he doesn't. Ion prepared for this moment, to give Luke direction and to save Tear from the miasma in her body. Ion falls onto Luke's arms, saying the reading was for him, a single path among many possible futures. His gift to Luke and his wish for the future of the score.
Luke, don't look at me like that. There are plenty of replacements for me.
How can you say that? Those other replicas don't know me at all. You're the only Ion that went to the Cheagle Woods with me.
You're the only Ion that went to the Cheagle Woods with me. He kept that with him, showing how long he keeps gratitude and how he cherishes every memory shared. With his final breath, he takes in Tear's miasma, and with gratitude bids farewell to Anis, his life coming to a tragic end. This isn't Ion surrendering his life. This is how he chose to live, in gratitude and love to the ones who believe him. Mose insults Ion's death as he escapes, claiming that the score provides prosperity to everyone. But in truth, not everyone is provided with victories. Some aren't even given anything. The score has become a farce, used to keep people worshipping the Order of Lorelei rather than be a guiding light to those who are lost. He then uses replicas of non-combatants to block our way, showing how he treats the humanity he claims to want to guide and protect. We take Anis's parents back to Dath. Arietta slaps Anis for her involvement in Ion's capture and eventual death. Enraged, Arietta challenges Anis to a duel. Grief-stricken and angry as well, she accepts the invitation and runs off. When you find her, she reveals that she's been reporting to Mose from the very first time you met. That's how the God Generals knew when and where to always obscure us. She did it because Mose released her father out of a scathing death. She had no choice but to obey. She's hurt by all the times she had to lie to Ion, and all of the times he's put in harm's way because of it. Luke hands off a fragment of the phone stone Ion read, a memento of his life. This and the one seen earlier with Ion, in a game with heavy-hitting emotional scenes, the line, "It hurts to have to lie," kills me. The pain and struggle of a girl torn between betraying her friends, protecting her parents, and betraying the trust of the person she values most. Melissa Fan's performance in this scene moves me to tears. A powerful moment performed beautifully. Having no time to grieve, we decide to head to Belkent, the place hinted from Ion's reading of the score. A plan is also made to hold the summit in place to decide the future of the score. Why don't we go to Sheridan a bit? Check in with that Cheagle from Ocean Cavern. It looks like the Cheagle survived after dying, but something healed him. I don't know, maybe we'll need to find his original somewhere or something. Arriving in Belkent, we witness a man die. A soldier informing us it happened after the man heard their score and the scorer has left for Batikol. Jade surmises that the deaths may have been caused by data being extracted via Fomicry. For now, we decide to speak with Spinoza about the miasma. Spinoza informs of the current situation. The Tartarus is no longer able to suppress the planet's core vibration. Soon, the seas in the Clyphot will become poison mud again. He mentions that in theory, Luke's hyperresonance can be used to remove the miasma. Jade breaks this discussion and asks if Spinoza had visitors before them. Spinoza then mentions that Ash was looking for the planet vibration measurements that were taken from Mount Ronil. Outside the laboratory, Luke asks Jade about using his hyperresonance to remove the miasma. He calls it ridiculous and clarifies how it's impossible, unreasonable, and most of all, immoral. Not only would it kill the user, but to accomplish a hyperresonance on a planetary scale, the user would have to kill 10,000 people who can use or have the potential to use 7 phonons. Jade emphasizes it's impossible and tells Luke to forget about the idea. This discussion continues on in a skit where Jade reminds him that the cost of removing the miasma is 10,000 murders. Then recounts the atrocity and tragedies Luke has had a hand on. And from this, do you remember the first time Luke took a life? He was hesitant, terrified, and horrified that people around him, even his best friend, has no hesitation to kill others in their own defense. Then I remember one thing Jade said before we went off to fight Van.
I know about the nightmares that still wake you in the middle of the night. For you, the fall of Axariuth still isn't a part of the past. On nights when you've killed bandits or Oracle soldiers, you lie there awake, shaking.
I'm a coward.
No, that part of you is something I lack. I still can't really grasp what it means for people to die.
Jade understands what it feels to bear atrocities in his back. He's responsible for Formicry after all. Jade does not want Luke to make this sacrifice because he knows the weight of it may break Luke's spirit. Pursuing Ash in Mount Renil at the entrance of the passage ring, Luke picks up a locket with Natalia's birth name. This is important for later. And believe it or not, the locket is more important than what Ash has to say. Well, he says almost nothing. He's grumpy Luke didn't receive the jewel. The sword can't act as the key of Lorelei without the jewel. Van is alive because he absorbed Lorelei into himself, helping him to survive and heal his wounds. So, on to Batical to find that renegade scorer. Wow, apparently Mose is in Batical too. Looks like we have to search the city for him. Spoiler alert, he's in the docks. He lumbers along mumbling about something called the Eldron. Dist arrives and Mose asks Dist for the power of the phone master. I mean, I would do Graf's power poem from Xenogears, but he's too cool to be associated with Mose. He does turn into a monster affected by that poem though. His face now matches his personality. Mose and Dist leave somewhere. After that confrontation, Luke decides to report to his uncle about the locket he found. But since Luke isn't good at lying, Guy and Jade have to bullshit Natalia into not joining for the discussion with the king. The king confirms that Natalia is indeed the baby on the locket, which Anis mentions Largo owns. After that, we lie to Natalia about the scorer being in Casidonia. Yeah, they didn't get to do that thing with the scorer in Batical, so they have to lie to their friend now.
You're an amazing liar, Colonel. Your smile hasn't budged.
Oh, I assure you, I'm crying on the inside, racked with guilt. Uh-huh.
So anyway, the scorer is in Casidonia, and it's an alive Sync. God, no one is dead from the God Generals. Sync is gathering sympathy for their new Order of Lorelei, and Sync uses Ion's voice to get through Anis. Also, remember that these people are getting their replica data taken, so after a few days, whatever future their score will have won't really have any bearing. With Jade bullshitting Natalia and Anis to distract her, we go to Astor to warn him about Sync and to talk to Natalia's nanny, who does confirm that the locket was indeed from Largo. After fetching Natalia and Anis, we're heading to Yulia City. Remember, we're arranging that summit. With the current Order of Lorelei in disarray, Theodora arranges a new leadership under Maestro Time. I told you he'd be important. We also learn from him that they found a location that's expending a lot of 7th phonons, but it's shifting locations. That location is the Isle of Ferris, the island across Hod that joined its destruction shortly after. It's a floating replica facility now, inhabited by monsters and replica soldiers. Arietta is also here. This is where she was born, and it's where her original parents died. Van found the island with Glegreta and converted it as his fomicry facility. Within the mansion, a bigger fomicry machine than what's in Coral Castle. Jade moves in to shut down the facility, but the replicas arrive in protest. Certain of most promise to them of being accepted into a promised land, unmoved by the prospect of their originals dying. For them, they're alive now, and they want to keep living. Tyr reminds Luke that he once had this confidence, a will to live that borders on arrogance. The one good thing his former self had. After defeating Van, he's lost all of that confidence. Because even after all of his accomplishments, for Luke, the fact that he destroyed Axariuth didn't change. Iemon, Tamra, Henken, and Kathy would still be alive, and the one thing he's worrying about, Ash, would still have his place in the world. Never mind that Ash may have died in Axariuth, Luke still believes that maybe he shouldn't have existed at all. Meanwhile, a land rises from the oceans, with it the god generals and Moes proclaiming the new order of Lorelei. Moes' influence and the people's dependence on the score being used to extract their replica data. The replicas, not being told of this, head to the Tower of Rem, preparing to be taken into the new Hod, the land arisen, a replica of the once destroyed city. Deciding to try to directly head into the Eldrant was clearly a bad idea. They're using the planet Storm to erect a barrier around it. Jade suggests to head to Grand Kokma and ask the military for ideas. After a discussion with a general, we head for Emperor Peony to report our discoveries. On our way there, Mos declares war on the world and inciting the people of Eldrant to create chaos in the name of the score. Mos' mind clearly becoming warped after his transformation. Jade explains the current situation with the lands disappearing due to the appearance of the Eldrant, a replica of Hod. A summit for the score and discussions for a strategy is proposed with Kimlaska, Malkuth, and the Order of Lorelei. We now only need to inform Teodoro about this plan. Outside the palace awaits Largo, who informs Anis where Arietta wants their duel to take place. Chigal Woods, the place where we slew the Mother Liger, who was also the one who raised Arietta. Going to Chigal Forest to respond to Arietta's challenge, Anis decides that she wants to go alone. After some convincing, she decides that she needs to come with everyone after all. You know, people like to meme about the power of friendship and all that stuff. What the does that mean anyway? I guess rightfully so, Kingdom Hearts Persona and a lot of anime did mimify the emotional motivation you can have with relationships. But man, how do you get through things in life? I get that some things in life you just have to deal with yourself, and we all deal with our own struggles differently. We can go to therapy, get some drugs if prescribed and necessary, but at the end of the day, having people you can reliably fall back on, that's great. Arietta waits on the same place we fought the Liger Mother. She claims that killing Anis would be revenge for Ion and her mother, as well as her loyalty to Van. Her motivation is kind of childish. She doesn't even acknowledge that she used her monsters to kill a lot of people. She doesn't even attempt to look into things deeper. She really is just a child, and Van has twisted her mind to the point that she's got no other way to live. I don't care if you say she's a trained soldier, but dude, Van saw her and trained her as a soldier after seeing her ability to communicate with monsters. It is not normal for you to train a little girl in war even with that ability. The fight with Arietta isn't that hard, but she does cast spells at an alarming speed. Either go for the Liger or Arietta. The Liger has a lot of mobility and loves to interrupt your casters, and Arietta is a powerful mage on her own. She is nerfed a bit because for some reason her mystic art is replaced with evil light, which in comparison to Big Bang, her previous one, isn't as threatening. We finally defeat her, and Largo reveals that Arietta fought for her goals and her beliefs. that she fought for her debt to Ion, Van, and the monsters, that nothing could stop her. But the thing is, she is still a child. The only reason she acted that way was because Van trained her to be that way. It's awful. Luke hands Largo the locket he found in Mount Ranil, calling him by his real name, Badak. Largo says that the name died with his wife long ago, and that he'll kill them the next time we meet. The next destination is to Yulia City and to inform Theodora of the summit. On its entrance, a person is shivering in the corner. It's a replica, a refugee from Sheridan. A watcher from the city informs us of the situation, how replicas of the dead appear on their own funerals, some of them being blamed for the deaths of the originals. Some replicas newly born with no basic knowledge, unable to even defend themselves. It's an awful situation created by Van and his followers, who just let the replicas roam with no guidance. After telling Theodora about the summit, we head directly to Batico. There are more replicas here. On our way to the castle, a man is distressed over a replica that appears before him. It's a replica of his friend, one who died weeks ago, the replica instinctively going to Batico as his last memory. After this altercation, the replica utters the Tower of Rem and walks away. The tower that's apparently made in an attempt to escape to another planet. Well, I'm quite fond of that Tales of story that went to another planet, but that's a different hour or so long video for another time. In front of the castle, people are protesting, yelling for the king to give in to the new order of Lorelei. They're afraid of the miasma, afraid of not having the score, afraid of the replicas. They describe the replicas as human things, confused of what they are and where they came from. This moniker sticks out to Luke. Natalia pleads with the citizens, promising to ask the new order of Lorelei for help if they can't remove the miasma. Ingubert updates us on the situation in Batico, the number of refugee replicas becoming too many to accept, with one appearing on their own funeral causing a riot that led to several deaths. And, well, there's also
It
this.
seems they're headed to a place called the Tower of Rem. Many have already left. But between clashes with the citizens and the stress on the economy, they caused quite an uproar. There were enough of them for an entire country, and the majority couldn't speak a word. Some people tried to snatch up replicas for untoward purposes.
Christ, man. With the summit agreed upon by the three leaders of the world, Ingobert proposes military action against Moses' new order of Lorelei. He asks everyone to rest in Luke's manor for the time being while the summit is being prepared. Luke also mentions the different task to the king. You already know what that is. Luke confirms Natalia's biological father, with Ingobert worried that Natalia will have to battle Largo in the future. Everyone suggests and agree with telling Natalia about Largo. For now, the king asks for time to mull things over. With some free time, Jade decides to head back to Grand Kokma to plan for a policy on the summit. Ash then uses brain communication and peeks through Luke's eyes, saying they need to meet up. Luke forces Ash to meet in the manor, their childhood home. Ash tells us he ran into a dead end with the search for the Jewel of Lorelei, with him worried about the miasma, swaying the citizens to support the new order of Lorelei. Luke mentions the possible solution to the miasma, implying he would risk his life. It's here that this one memory returned, that he would die for Axarius. And as Jade said before, for Luke, Axarius is not a part of the past. It's in his conscience forever. Ash is incensed with Luke, saying it would be convenient for a replica to just throw his life away. Luke then drags Ash in front of their parents, giving them the opportunity to see their first son for the first time in 7 years. Tyr asks Luke if he's okay with Ash returning to his original home. He confesses his fear, his feeling of inferiority, that he's an imposter, that he would rather have his biggest fear of learning he's unneeded be confirmed as soon as possible. Guy ignites with anger with Luke's recent behavior and the mention of the solution to the miasma, figuring out that Luke wants to sacrifice himself to destroy the miasma. Luke is confused and worried, with questions that hovered around his head since he learned he was a replica. Guy scolds Luke, and Ash intervenes as well, proclaiming he's not Luke anymore, telling Luke harshly to get over his inferiority complex. Guy suggests to turn in for the night. In the morning, both Kim Laska and Malkuth agree to shut down the planet storm, as informed by Jade and Natalia, who worked on convincing both countries. If you're wondering why they needed permission to do that, basically the planet storm is where all the magic in this world comes from. So it's a really big deal. With this, all that remains is the formal summit in Dath. On our way outside, Spinoza storms in, mentioning that Ash asked about using his hyperresonance to remove the miasma, planning to use the replicas to substitute the amount of energy needed to trigger a planet-wide reaction. A feat that's ensured to kill the one who attempts it along with all the replicas he's going to use. So we need to rush to the Tower of Rem, where the replicas are gathering. Within the tower, a mass of replicas, waiting for Moses' promised land. A promise that's never going to be fulfilled, their eyes blank, having no individuality, result of imbuing basic human function into a replica. A member of the Dark Wings, who were hired by Ash, by the way, I forgot to mention that, confirmed that Ash is indeed planning to use his hyper-resonance and the replicas to remove the miasma. Unfortunately, we can't use the elevator, so to the stairs we go. Along the stairs are the other two members of the Darkwings. They're looking for Ash too. They reveal that Natalia is Ash's reason to stubbornly go through this plan, to prevent Natalia's kingdom from being swallowed by the miasma. He also mentions that he doesn't have much time yet, planning to take the miasma as he goes. Fortunately, we do find a service lift that takes us farther up the tower. Unfortunately, it lands us to a puzzle that I took too long to solve. It involves opening doors and collecting orbs for energy. After solving quite a long puzzle, it's not that hard, I was just confused. We finally have access to the elevator. Coincidentally, the lift that we crash into have the replicas of Mary, Frings, and Iemon, refusing to be used by Ash and awaiting salvation with the promise of a land of their own. This arrives, revealing Mose never intended to fulfill his promise, and guns down some of the replicas. His goal is to eradicate them. This reveals he's still obsessed with reviving Professor Nebelim, unable to move on from the death of their mentor and the changes his friends grown into. Jade expresses his regret in not killing this before, and we fight. It's not much of a long fight. This very much just upgraded his robot. Still a bit resistant to physical attacks, so you'll have to do your best to keep it occupied while your casters do their best to bring it down. With this defeated, he reinforces that Mose will never fulfill his promise. Mary laments that her kind has nowhere left to go. Luke says that they're not supposed to live in this era as replicas. Tyr argues that it's the world's fault if they're not accepted. But Guy does remind them that some of the replicas did arrive in the expense of their originals, reminding that some people won't be able to accept them. Ash arrives, asking Mary for a decision, with Mary wanting to decide with the other replicas who are able to think. The Darkwings tell us they're going back to Dath with Ash. With Ash still determined to proceed with his plan, to use his and the lives of the replicas to remove the miasma. Luke still thinks that Ash, as the original, have to be the one to save Lorelei. Jade asks him if he really believes it to be so, and Luke answers yes. But Jade kind of acts worried. When I got back to writing about this point of the story, I kind of broke down. I stopped, wiped the tears from my face, and busied myself with something else. I have seen this many times before, but it doesn't stop being heartbreaking. The plan to neutralize the miasma reached the three rulers. They all agree to the severe absurdity of the plan and the tragedy it would cause. Natalia protests to her father, and Jade subtly suggests for Luke to be the one to go on with the plan. Guy protests. Jade understands both Natalia and Guy's objections, even stating that he feels the same way, but the miasma has spread so far that delaying a solution would only lead to turmoil from the people and more casualties of life. Tyr, the one who swore to watch over Luke and see through his journey, begs them not to make him choose. During this time, Luke is given time to think through this plan. Natalia acknowledges Luke's existence as her other childhood friend, validating the years that Luke has lived as a son of House Fabra, and that she needs the support of her friend to make her dream country real. Guy vehemently opposes, wanting Luke to fight for his life. wanting him to live longer. But he understands why this needs to be done, and it hurts him to see that his best friend is only given 7 years to live. And Tear, Luke confesses his fears to her, but acknowledges what decision he'll make, promising to stand beside him, but swearing to hate him if he dies, even if everyone in the world heralds him as a hero. It's hard to explain how this ultimately makes me feel. I cry when I heard their protests and their feelings. But for some people, they'll just say, it's just a video game, get over it. But if you don't feel for these characters, if you don't experience their story, what's the point even? I understand that not all games have stories that are stellar or emotional or impactful. Some people just want to push some buttons to get their stress off of things. I get that. I used to watch this streamer who always cries on their streams and gets brutally derided by people for some reason. But I think that's an honest and frankly admirable way of enjoying a piece of fiction. Being swept away by the emotions brought to you by the things that touch your heart is how I wish I can enjoy all the pieces of art I experience. On our way to return to the Three Rulers, we run into Ash, who returns from Dot's passage ring. Luke and Ash argue again. Luke trying to stop Ash from offering his life in exchange for his. Luke wants for Ash to take his place back, the life that Luke inadvertently stole. This ends in an altercation that Jade has to stop, in the danger that they may cause another Axeriuth. Ash leaves and we return to the Three Rulers with Luke's decision. Theodoro lamenting that they must order Luke to die. Peony carrying the weight of the order, choosing to do so for the sake of his countrymen, and Ingobert, as his uncle, is still opposed to this, being the one who've already sent him to die once. Asks Luke to do this for them. It is here that Theodoro reveals something about the score.
Ironic. The Tower of Rem was built at the center of a mining town on the QB Peninsula. If Luke succeeds, he will have fulfilled the score.
ND 2018. The young scion of Lorelei's power shall bring his people to the miner's city.
There, the youth will turn power to calamity and be as a weapon of Kamlaska, destroying himself and the city.
It's just like Van said. Deviations are as nothing before the score.
With this, the three apologize to Luke, with Ingobert promising to not find him if he decides to escape. It is brutally heartbreaking to see Luke question his own worth. He's lost with no self-worth, contemplating that maybe this is his destiny, that maybe this is all he'll be worth. And yet, he's afraid to die. He wants to learn his place in the world, but he can't move past all of the things he's done wrong, and his origin as a replica made to replace someone to prevent their death. We arrive back in the Tower of Rem, where Mary cradles a replica refugee in her arms. The replica was a victim of exploitation and persecution. Mary clarifies why they agreed to this, so their kind can have a place on this land as their originals did. A small hope in exchange for their lives. Ash arrives to gather them together, Luke stopping him, asking to take his place as he's unneeded. Ash explodes.
That's enough! Unneeded? I did not have everything stolen from me by someone unneeded! Don't insult me!
This is where we understand Ash and his attitude towards Luke. He decided to do this because he no longer feels like he has a place where he used to be. That's why he's angry at Luke all the time. Ash sees Luke as ungrateful that his life has far expanded into something he'll never be anymore. Because at the end of the day, Ash still wants his life back. The life that was stolen away from him so many years ago. Luke knocks away Ash and Jade holds him back. As Luke channels his hyper-resonance, we hear his thoughts, wanting to live for himself. Luke's power wanes, but noticing Luke had the Jewel of Lorelei inside him all along, Ash boosts his power so he can continue removing the miasma. The miasma disappears, with Ash and Luke still alive. Natalia, Guy, and Anis swearing a place for Mary's kind. As we leave, Ash still refuses to join our party because, well, his reasoning is sound. The God Generals will just chase them. And he leaves. Jade, worried about the amount of power Luke just used, asks him to do a full examination in Belken. The doctor puts it bluntly, he's dying. The miracle above the Tower of Rem only postponing his death. Luke decides to not tell everyone, choosing to enjoy the remaining days of his life, no matter how brief. Jade sees through this and warns him not to use his power unless absolutely necessary. Miu hears this conversation and tells Tyr what he heard in Batikul when we reconvened for the day. In his room, Luke is contemplating what time he has left, until Tyr confronts him about his condition. Luke choosing not to tell everyone else to avoid referential treatment that would remind him of his limited time. He confides with Tyr, revealing his fear, and she asks him to never hide things from her again. The morning comes, and the soldier informs us of an emissary of the new Order of Lorelei. It's Largo. With their proposal of surrender rejected, he accepts this as a declaration of war against them. Also, there's this cool moment where Duke Fabra acknowledges both Luke and Ash as his sons, so that's pretty cool. As Largo leaves, Ingobert calls everyone to his chambers to reveal to Natalia the truth of her birth and who her biological father is. Natalia is in shock and chases Largo down to the docks, aiming an arrow at him. He reveals why he joined Van. That a scorer told Largo and his wife that they must have a child even at her poorer health. Then when the child was taken from her, Largo resented the score on how, no matter how you avoid it, since it's part of the planet's memory, all events will still move on how the planet remembers it. Natalia tries to tell Largo what she knows, but for him, his daughter died and was lost with his wife. Back in Ingobert's chambers, he gives Natalia the option to no longer join the fight against the Order. Ultimately, she decides to think on it while we travel. Now, it's off to find a way to stop the planet storm, which means meeting in Yulia City. The people need a bit of time to learn what they need to do to stop the planet storm, so for now, we separate again. Talking to everyone as Luke is mostly a parade of how Luke is blind and dance around Tyr. In Tyr's room is her and Natalia. Natalia confiding with Tyr, asking her how she felt when she learned of Van's plans. Tyr tells her about the confusion and anger when she learned of his plans and the fear of their first confrontation. It's a very heartwarming scene of the two characters who eventually need to face their own family on the other side of the conflict, a position Tyr has held since the story began. Luke returns to the meeting room and we get fully briefed on the Jewel of Lorelei's properties and what we need to do. Yes, I just put all the briefing in. What of it? At the bottom of the absorption gate is, basically every important character, beholden to the resurrection of Van. It looks like they made a new replica of Ian as well. Van is expositing that he sang Julia's hymn to lure Lorelei into him, ultimately restoring his physical form. Van then asks both Ash and Luke to join him, and they both refuse. You know, it's funny. Van didn't have any faith that Luke, as a replica, would be able to become as strong as he is now. But here he is trying to destroy the world and replace all its citizens with replicas. Replicas he does not have any faith on. It makes you think, what if the replicas eventually rebel? What if they don't fit with Van's vision after he makes his new world? Largo then puts himself in the way to help Van escape. Largo, enraged by the people's dependence on the score and the lives they sacrificed for it, convinced that the original world must be purged to free the people from the planet's memory. Okay, so the dude has super armor, but he eventually staggers after a few hits, and the tank with no support characters isn't really as good as a tank in a full team. As we defeat him, Largo bids farewell to his daughter, Natalia, calling her father for the first and last time. Below, Luke uses the Jewel of Lorelei to close the absorption gate and see himself in a vision within the planet's memory. He sees how Van fell into the core and how he restored Sync to life. With this connection to the core, Luke is also able to see what Ash sees and communicates with him. Ash shuts him down and he awakens to alarm the others. We chase Sync away to hear Ion's replica read the score. Mose learns of the end of Aldrent from the 7th phone stone and basically doesn't have a positive reaction to it, his mind deteriorating into insanity. Attempting to attack Luke, Lorelei temporarily awakens and emits some kind of force. Well, I think that's what happens. The screen kinda just flashes 3 times. He then escapes and leaves Ion's replica. Anis suggests we take him to Doth. Anis names the replica Florian. He's a nice boy. Sadly, most of his story is in the side quests. But believe me, he is a good boy. With no time to waste, we head to the radiation gate, arriving safely with the efforts of Noel. You know, it's really funny. They have a short conversation about the use of power and how it can be abused, noting that a person could easily use such power to destroy. That is true for Luke, but it's doubly so for the next boss fight. Mose, who's totally lost it. The man is just blindly following the score, leaving many traumatized, injured, maimed, or dead. He coaxed Ingobert to wage war on both sides unwilling, exposed Natalia's true birth parents in the hopes of bringing the king against their side, creating replicas that are willing to give their lives for a promise of prosperity, and then eventually abandoning them. Mose is a monster, and he deserves this end. After a military briefing in Grand Kokma, running into Ash on our way to Cassidonia to prepare for the final battle. Luke tries to hand him the jewel, probably because he knows he's going to die. Luke still does believe that he's inferior to Ash, and this just sets him off. He hurls insults at Luke, goading for a fight. In the end, to determine who really was Van's student, the one with the responsibility to stop Van, Ash challenges Luke to a duel on the Eldrant. In Cassidonia, we're given 24 hours to rest before the final battle. Everyone gets a moment for themselves. Natalia and Guy talk about Ash. Jade and Anis talk about what they'll do after the battle ends. The third arc of the game is my favorite. After defeating Van for the first time, Luke no longer feels he has a place in the world, utterly lost in what to do next. These thoughts fester in his mind, coalescing into depression and an inferiority complex. Even though he didn't have the means to actually fully understand what Lorelei's message meant, he still beat himself over it. Luke finally discovers his lease in life, but he no longer has any time to enjoy it. Other than Jade, who already knows he is dying, Luke elects to not tell everyone because he's worried. Everyone would treat him like, well, he's dying. But in this moment, he looks at the moon with tear and...
Weird. I'm really happy right now. I have friends, and you? I can finally think of myself as me. This is probably the happiest moment of my life.
What?
I mean, I wish I could think it wouldn't be.
The happiest moment in Luke's life is realizing that he's obtained everything he needs. Finally acknowledging who he is. Eldrant is a barrage of boss battles. First up is Lagreta, who fights for her loyalty and her beliefs that she shares with Van, earnestly believing that they have to destroy the original world to create a new world of free will, ironically surrendering her own to Van. This fight is basically just an upgrade of your last fight against her, only with additional arts and the occasional mystic art. Her defeat reveals her true feelings, fighting alongside Van, not just sharing beliefs, but also her affection. Her love pushing her to put her life on the line for him. In the end, defeated by her own student and Van's sister. The next fight is Luke's fated duel against Ash. Like the other times you fought Ash before, Luke needs to fight Ash alone. Ash still not accepting to go in his place, resenting the time he lost and the identity Luke took from him. With the best, most thematic battle theme, meaning of life. A battle to settle once and for all who is the one looking into the mirror and who is the reflection. This battle pretty much functions the same way it did the few times you fought Ash. He has the same moveset but will hit you with spells if you run too far. We learned that he's going to disappear as well, like Luke, and after the battle, He just lets Luke go. And now, surrounded by enemies, he proclaims his birth name against them. Valiantly, he fends off hordes of soldiers. But then, Ash is stabbed in the back, using the last of his strength to tell Luke,
It looks like I had a little trouble. The rest is up to you.
Ash is now dead. Natalia is shocked and unable to move from this news. Seeing this weakness, Sync unleashes a trap that Luke destroys with his now complete hyper-resonance. Now, Sync appears before you. His hatred for the score born of his creation as a test subject, rejected and cast aside, not fit to replace the phone master. He had no will, no life that he made. As a replica, he didn't dare create a new life for himself, only dedicated it to support Van and his goal to destroy the score. Now, Sync's fight is kind of a pain. All of his melee arts are arcane arts, things that you can't normally do unless you exploit the game's FOF mechanic. There's a lot of telltale signs when he's going to do this, so just heal accordingly and don't let him reach your healer or caster. After the fight, Jade reminds Natalia of what we need to do, and after accepting Ash's death, we receive the complete key of Lorelei. All that remains now is Van. So, I have some very interesting observations for our Palpatine. Van is interesting as a character as he's posited as some kind of hero in his own story. Look at his sword even. It's near a replica of the hero's sword in Dragon Quest. Part of his goal is even killing God to free the people from the influence of the score. Now, part of this plan is genociding an entire planet and running it into your grandfather's photocopier, but let's get one thing clear. His motive to kill Lorelei to release people from the score, that's not because of an altruistic reason to free people from their dependency of the score. If that was the case, there is no need to replace everyone with replicas. Hell, Luke put him to shame by being the force to sway a lot of people away from depending on the score. He's doing this because of revenge. Because to him, the tragedy of Hoth wasn't yesterday. The war took his home and everything he ever loved. He's lashing out on the world. Even with his own sister trying to stop him, his anger is so ingrained against the world, he has to create the new world even with the cost of his own blood, relationships, and even allies. The fight with Van isn't your typical RPG final boss. He mostly fights like the first time you fought him, only with additional moves like the other god generals you fought before him. His second form isn't even a Grandois monstrous form. He just gains a spiffy new arm and lets down his hair. But that doesn't mean it's easy. At normal difficulty, he hits like a truck. In this second form, his mystic art that has quite a bit of range is guaranteed fatal damage all the time. And yes, if you did not notice the change of costumes and party members, I did have to redo this fight quite a few times. The end of the fight treats you to the full Grand Phonic hymn, with the game allowing you to fight, ending with Luke using Radiant Howl, and finally defeating Van. The defeat of Van makes the Elrond unstable, and Luke needs to stay to free Lorelei. Everyone says their goodbyes, and their wishes for Luke to survive and come home, ending with a sweet confession from Tyr. The freed Lorelei congratulates Luke, and with a flash of light, we are treated to the credits. Images of the characters as children, and to when they've become adults. Again, we see Tyr singing the Grand Phonic hymn, a view of the broken Elrond from where the journey first began. Everyone waiting for Luke at Tataru Valley. A silhouette of a man appears, his red hair lit by moonlight. Luke has come home, free to live the rest of his life. I started playing this game on a whim. I had no end goal. I just wanted to play it. We live our lives. We study, we work, we play, we make mistakes. We make up for those mistakes. We improve, but after all that, the feeling of not doing enough always lingers. The people around you welcome you, but sometimes you still feel like you have no place in this world. We live very small, very brief lives. But there's a lot of us that wallow in our own mistakes instead of seeing the best moments of our lives. I wish you all well. I hope that some way, like Luke, we find something that makes our lives content. I hope we find our place in this world. I think this game is so much better now. This game is filled with so much love and care, and I think everyone should play it. I'm looking forward to seeing this game again someday. I hope that remaster has been released or announced the day this video releases. I wish we all can experience this on our own someday. I hope it was worth all the small videos I made. There's a lot more of this game I didn't mention, like the first time you go to the casino, or the many lighthearted character moments, the best crossover boss battle in any video game, the secret boss that will destroy your brain. This game is just a lot, man, and I really do hope we have that remaster by now or something. Anyway, if you're in a place where you think you've done wrong, or if you're lost, I believe we can change. We just need to start small and do what we can right now.